some, Dr. Hall?
You don't need drink, Kirby. I will later. Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Brittany Macy and this is Matt Alfano, and we did our senior design project with Frito-Lay, and it was good fun. First, a little background corporate structure about PepsiCo, which is the owners of Frito-Lay. They own a lot of stuff. Chances are, if you've eaten it today, it's Frito-Lay. The big point we're trying to make with this is Frito-Lay represents 37% of PepsiCo's profit and 29% of its revenue. So with all of those things that it owns, that's over and around a third of its profit and revenue. So Frito-Lay is a big part of PepsiCo. Frito-Lay, something about it, it's a convenient foods leader, have about $11 billion in annual sales. They have around 48,000 employees nationwide. Their headquarters are in Plano, Texas, which I think is on the front of our document, right? Yeah. They have an over 70-year history, so a lot of trial, a lot of error, and a lot of optimizing what it is that they do and making it efficient. They have over 30 plants and 200 distribution centers across the United States and Canada, and they own one of their largest personal private fleets in North America. Here is a slide of common Frito-Lay brands, which we all know and love. They are category leaders in many, many different categories, which obviously leads for high sales and a lot of trouble for their competitors, because not only do we have a lot of products, we have a lot of liked products. So, works for us. Background and problem situations. Our big thing here, we're working with Jeff Arndt in the replenishment department, and they have a lot of out-of-stock issues with their mainly Sam's Club clients. These issues are due to RSRs in big part. Our route sales representatives is who goes to each Sam's Club place by place and will place handheld orders of what is needed, when it's needed, that sort of thing. And you know, there's human error in that. People will order things to take kickbacks from certain vendors. They won't take into account trends or social developments that are about to happen, and they'll just place an order, and that causes a lot of issues with either not having an inventory and having empty shelves, or having too much of something that just isn't selling on the shelf. And that causes a lot of fines, and so it's something we really want to be able to help with. Specifically, they have their out-of-stock tools and server is very outdated. I think when we met with them, it was a 97 edition, and we got it up to 2003. But anyway, it's a very old edition of system software, so they run into a lot of complications with that. And because of this, they don't have the information readily available to them all at once, where they can create appropriate delivery frequencies and time schedules, and they don't necessarily know what number of product, like individual SKU, is needed per club, because you're going to need a different amount of chips in New Orleans than you are in Washington, simply because of demographic demand differences. So that's basically what we've been trying to hop along with.
So currently the out of stock is 11. So if it goes below 11, it's out of stock. But one good example is in McAllen, Texas, they sell 2,000 cases of hot Cheetos every week. So it's never going to get to 11. They always going to have a lot more supply there. So we're trying to look at the frequencies for all 597 clubs. 597 clubs, and we decided to just, because it's such a big task, we decided just to do the two most demanded product lines, which is the Smart Mix, which is the green bag, and also the classic variety mix, but we did the 30 counts that were found at Sam's Club. And some of the tools we used, we started off doing the smoothie model, the weekly smoothie model that Dr. Barr gave us, but that was manual, and we had to input each club's weekly sales into it to get the output, to get the regressional analysis and stuff. So we didn't want to do that for 597 clubs for two product lines. That's over 1,000 import, export. I'm all about efficiency, so we like, let's move to the next method. So then we tried to do it in SAS, and it was a very tiring process, and we got some good data like standard deviation by week, some mean averages, max means, just to take a general look at it. But we decided to do it in Excel for most user friendliness, because it could be a tool that you can just copy and paste a typical SPY report. This is what a SPY report looks like currently. It exports from their database, the query pulls it, and it's basically the product line for every club for all their current sales data back to 2008. And they used a week system on just week 1, 2, all the way to 2. So we decided to make a tool that it pulls top left corner, club number is a drop down bar with the VLOOKUPs to every club number, and then based on that, it imports all of the original sales data for the past 2 years, as well as the 2 week for 2010 for us to forecast and look at. And then some things we started looking at, the first thing we thought was let's do a moving average to try and track, to see some of the frequencies in that. And all the formulas are up here. Seasonal index, we noticed that it goes up and down. If there's a lot of high sales, then it's going to drastically decrease in the next couple of weeks. So we created a seasonal index. And let's see, and then over here, when we did our actual forecasting, we tried to measure its efficiency. So we have the sum product of the total differences. We also have something cool to notice is that the average for 2010 week sales matches our forecast average, but it doesn't have all the ups and downs of a traditional business cycle. So here's what one of our graphs looks like. We have the original data, which is mapped over by the seasonally adjusted data. And then the red line is the moving average, which basically doesn't hit all of the drastic ups and downs. And then the yellow line, we started off doing a trend line, but it was kind of bland. It didn't really go with the flow of the sales. So we did a poly line to the 6th order. And then we have our formula up there, which auto-generates per club, per sales data, as well as the R squared, which is relatively low because it's kind of hard to forecast sales data when you only have two years and 4 weeks data.
Try our recommendations later.
Okay, then this is the next page where we have our linear exponential smoothing forecast model, and it uses an alpha of 0.5. We had to fiddle with the alpha to see what we thought was the most accurate, and we ended up deciding just to use 0.5, and all of these are tied to that previous sheet. So you got your center moving average, your seasonal index, and then at the end, to measure our forecast, we did some confidence intervals so that we hoped that the original data would stay in between our confidence intervals as well as our forecasts, so it would be pretty accurate. Just basically gives us a little range on both sides based on the RMSE, which is the
Oh, the roots.
Root mean square.
root mean squared equation. Okay. And then off that we got some more charts, more analytical charts we can look at to basically check the frequencies and look at, which helps you a lot because they only had that original SPY report. So at most they could throw into a pivot table and then maybe just throw the sales data into a chart. But now this is all copy and paste that SPY chart into this form, and it will do all this analysis for them forever. So it's a pretty good tool that they can use. And this, our R squared is pretty low on this one, a little higher on the poly. That's why we decided to go with the poly over the trend. And then let's go to the stuff. So then when we re-seasonalized it using the seasonal adjustment, we got more of those ups and downs. So when we actually did our forecast, we thought that it would be a lot more accurate. And the yellow line is our original data, as well as the teal, like bluish line, is the re-seasonalized our forecast for, we pushed it out to 32 weeks just to see what it would do. And we have our confidence intervals, which is basically our plus or minus the root mean squared, 2 times root mean squared. So basically, if you can see here, this up right here, around week 5, 6, it's basically, you can see that during the Super Bowl, that there's this huge increase in sales, so people are all buying the big bags at Sam's Club to support their party, and then everyone buys too much bags, no one eats enough chips. So sales drastically go down for the next couple of weeks. So there's a lot of variables like that, but some of them we noticed were even just TV show watching, like American Idol, or we try to just look at different like Olympics and sporting events to see where the ups and downs were, and some of them, they were obvious, but some of them weren't. So there's a lot of more variables that we could include in our analysis that we need to look for the future.
They'd have to be more property specific to each individual location, because you really can't give a general demand for even one product for the entire country. So
We thought that if you looked at population size per city for the club, you'd be able to see if maybe an increase in size of the city would increase overall sales, or maybe demographic information about the people, because certain genders like certain flavors, not to be racist, some like some Spanish people like more hot flavors.
or cultural differences
yeah.
in what our palates
Cultural flavor
like and
differences.
do not like. And those need to be taken into account. Obviously, it would be a bit more extensive research than what we had the time to do.
And then here is our errors located from our seasonal adjustment. They kind of are sporadic at times, but they do.
This is the errors in the sales industry. So, I mean, if you're gonna give me a sales industry that has no errors, I'm probably gonna laugh at you and think that you're lying to me, but at least the fact that we've tracked the errors and noticed that they do decrease, it's something that you can look at and see that if any implementations that you're doing are decreasing your errors or increasing your errors, it's a good checks and balance.
It's a good check for the future when we get more sales data, so that we can actually store up to 5 years, because usually you need 5 years to do an accurate forecast. So hopefully we can minimize our errors in our forecast.
It would be interesting to see if, once you're in next couple of years and you're adding sales information, if those errors will decrease the more information, the more past data that you give the tool to work with, until obviously gets more accurate.
So in summary of our analysis, we created accurate tools that could be used for the field, the RSR, the RSM, sales representatives, that could basically do analysis for their club, so it can be customized for them, and they can input each week's new sales to see if they put more stock into a certain product because they see this trend line, or if they know from the past that right before Super Bowl or New Year's or all these ups and downs, or usually before the year ends, the sales dip nationally for all Sam's Club. So some of those things they can take into effect. And so we did the seasonal adjustment, 2-week future average, the center moving average, and all these tools are easy to use, and that was our main focus, was to make it user-friendly. So it's all drop-down box, user-friendly, and I actually started working on a dashboard that would open up so you can just click buttons instead of actually manipulating the two drop-down boxes. But that was our main goal, and I think we accomplished it. So.
In terms of managerial interpretation, we are hoping that this will just make things easier. I mean, in terms of looking at past sales data, generating reports for your board members, generating forecasts, with this tool that we created, it's easier, plain and simple. It's easy and efficient. Also, with this information, it will be more realistic for Frito-Lay's representatives to be able to determine what appropriate minimum inventory levels are. Because, as Matt mentioned earlier, a minimum of 11 units for every single product, for every single store, doesn't make sense, like, in any terms. So that needs to be adjusted if they can figure out how to actually edit that feature. And also establishing proper delivery frequencies, which will obviously decrease delivery costs if they're doing too much or too little. Overall, this will allow Frito-Lay to avoid the hassle of out-of-stock fines, which is actually a big deal, and they gain a bit more control in the information gathering process instead of relying on the RSRs to tell them the truth, which they don't necessarily have to tell you the truth about what's needed. So this just gives them a lot more control over the information that they really do need on a daily basis. And as for conclusions and critiques, user-friendly was the main point that was brought to us, and if you check out the system, it is user-friendly. Also, update your software, keep more sales records, and change those inventory levels.
Quick questions? And I noticed all your, the actuals were within the confidence interval,
Yeah.
so they work.
There were a
Some of it.
couple, and unfortunately there are quite a few products that
Good job.
escaped the confidence interval. We tried to pick one that,
We chose the ones that aren't
Okay.
most accurate.
but
Sure it's
Well,
representative.
with 597, there's gonna be some that go out of bounds
Okay.
a little bit.
But you can figure out which ones, like which products are the ones going outside the confidence interval and look into more specifically those products and create changes.
All right, thank you.